Hi, welcome to our vlog series where Workday Project Manager Jane Davis and I are going to continue walking through the process of evaluating and implementing Workday for our government customers. I'm your host, Amy LaHait, Director of our Client Partner team here at Collaborative Solutions. During our last video, we focused on the reference process, and today we're going to talk about preparing for your ERP implementation. So Jane was a customer, recently joined Collab as a project manager. Hi, Jane.
Hello.
Thanks for joining again today. So today we're going to talk about preparing for implementation, and would love to see if we can kick off by getting your insight into, how do you go about starting to build the project team and then also planning out resource coverage, specifically like managing time and backfilling for certain positions?
Yeah, so basically what we did was identify all the different areas that were going to be impacted by having Workday. So all of the items that we purchased, like inventory, procurement, HCM, payroll, we knew that for each one of those areas in Workday, we would need somebody from the city to be the subject matter expert or a lead for that area too. So what we did was choose the people who knew the most. We really needed the people who had that knowledge, who knew the current process and were able to take us through to the future process. And of course, what that means, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around really, but those people are needed for extended amounts of time once you start implementation. So they have to go to like design meetings, sometimes for weeks on end. Sometimes you'll have a person who is on multiple different areas. So you might have a payroll lead who's also a compensation lead, or a asset management person who also does projects. So that means they'd have two whole sets of Workday deliverables to manage as well. So those people can end up being very overloaded. And, the goal is to try and get them, identify who they are earlier, let them know what's going to be required of them, and then try and get them some support as far as backfilling or other people in the office who might take some of the load off of them.
And I think to that end too, did you have any best practices that you can share to say, does it make more sense to backfill for somebody who is going to work on the Workday project versus do the day-to-day responsibilities of the job?
Yeah, well, what we did based on finances available was choose people who could help with the day-to-day office functions and let the leads go and be the lead. So rather than bringing in a new person who was going to work on the Workday project, who really didn't have any knowledge of our organization, we kind of allowed those people who had the knowledge to go off and do the Workday work, and then have that back office person help with just general day-to-day tasks. And ahead of time, we really started to have our leads think about what can you delegate out, because it's kind of hard if you have the person roll up to start work and then you start thinking, oh, what am I going to give them to do? You kind of lose some precious time there. So we really tried to have our leads think early about what they would have these new people do, and what is something easy or just lower level task that you can start passing off to other people, and not just the backfill person, but who else in the office can do something different. And it's a great professional development opportunity for other people in the office to learn something new and take on some of that work. And I found that they actually really enjoyed helping and being part of that too. And so the complement of the current staff with the backfill staff can work really well, but you just have to plan it and make sure to do it in advance. Otherwise, the lead is too busy to pass down the tasks, and it starts to become a bottleneck in itself.
That makes sense. And I think kind of thinking about taking it to the next step where we know we're doing this ERP implementation. Now we want to start to think about business process improvements and kind of taking an opportunity to actually improve the way we're doing business, and not just kind of lifting and shifting what we're already doing. Do you have any recommendations on how to maximize the opportunity to do that? And then also, who's involved in the decision making, and how do you decide who will actually be part of those conversations?
Yeah, well, we did start very early, about a year actually before implementation, on working through some of those business process improvements, and maybe where we could cut out some approval levels or just make some improvements generally. But then once you get into implementation, the decision making comes very thick and fast. Once your implementation partner shows up and you start doing design sessions, what were one and twosie decisions are now hundreds of decisions. So what we made sure of was the people who were in those design sessions were empowered and able to make decisions. So they had to know enough about what we did currently, and they also had to be empowered to make decisions. And sometimes if the decision was really big, maybe it impacted the whole organization or many people, or had like a large financial ramification, then of course those type of decisions funnel up through the steering committee or maybe department heads or something. But you really need someone in those sessions who's really able to just power through some of the decisions and get things done.
And that reminds me of when I was a ERP functional consultant back in the day, because I know we had a lot of cross-functional decisions that had to be made that were really difficult. Like, it was hard to get everybody together to be able to, obtain consensus. And I know, we talk about like a governance structure and the importance of those steerco meetings. Do you have anything to add there that, tips or tricks on how do you actually get people to come together on those cross-functional decisions?
Yeah. So, what was great with our implementation, which I do like about the model we did the Big Bang methodology, which is we did HR, payroll, and finance all at the same time. So when we were having discussions in each of those areas, we knew, especially with the guidance from Collaborative Solutions, where those touch points were. So there may be like an HR discussion happening where the lead would say, this kind of is something that finance needs to weigh in on. So we'd bring the finance team in, and we'd encourage our customer team, as a customer, we would say, let's make sure we bring in all the right people into the room, and really, don't be afraid to bring somebody in or let them have input. And so we put a lot of emphasis on that. And that's, like I say, that was a really good part about doing all of those areas at the same time, because we were able to make really good cross-functional decisions, and that worked for us.
Thanks for sharing that. So I think the last topic that we can talk about for today would be setting expectations with the organization. This is hugely important, obviously, to make sure that the project's going to be successful. We'd love to hear about how you went about doing this and how it was actually received too.
Yeah, so there was a lot of change management that happened ahead of the project and also during the project. And, a big part was really trying to make sure that the organization knew how much those leads were going to be needed, and that they weren't going to be available to do their things that people would rely on them for normally. So sometimes, it's about their managers too. All of a sudden you can't have a manager going, hey, I didn't know my employee's going to be gone for 6 months, basically, what's going on here? So, we made sure that they understood, and also that we gave time for those people to do their normal day-to-day things that they had to do as well. So really, letting everybody know to ease up on those folks, give them a break. They're going to be really busy, having everyone else sort of help and pitch in too and be understanding. So we did that through sort of large company-wide communications and newsletters and other things like that.
And to that end, I know, Collaborative has its own organizational change and training practice, and whether the organization decides to take that on or if you want to seek the help of a partner, it's really important to think about what is your communications strategy, and also, do you want some help with that, or are you obviously going to take that on your own? So appreciate your input as always. I think that's what we're going to cover for today. Always want to thank you, Jane, for being able to share all of your experiences with us. And we are going to cover in our next log edition, talking about the topic of training during the implementation process. So Jane, thanks again for your time today.
Thanks, Amy.